Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Like always, before we begin, I want to thank a couple of people. First of all, I want to thank my friends here at Calexico Brewing Company for giving me the space today to record this episode. Thank you very much, guys. Also want to thank my anchor sponsors, my friends Camilo, Jake, Eddie Lopez from Roots Creative, Ms. Norma Galindo, Sergio's Tacos and Hotdogs, serving the Imperial, San Diego, and Yuma counties with 8 years of experience of Mexicali style on tacos and hot dogs and taquizas. Make sure you contact Sergio at 760-562-0057 or look for Sergio's Tacos and Hot Dogs on Facebook. I want to thank Eric Reyes from Los Amigos de la Comunidad, empowering communities together. Finally, I want to thank David Gastelum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home in the Imperial or San Diego counties, make sure you contact David. He's not only a realtor, but an investor with over 20 years of experience. And he'll teach you along the way one of the most important investments of your life. Make sure you contact David at 760-235-9576. And today we have a returning guest. Last time, actually, we were talking about this. This is the first time we met in person. Last time we talked was in the hype of the lockdown, the pandemic. You were getting used to remote teaching, running that campaign, during
Absolutely.
a lockdown. So my guest today is Andrew Arevalo. He's a teacher. He's a school board member for the Centro Elementary School District and now a candidate for IID Division 1.
Division 1, correct.
So thank you for coming back on the show.
No, well, more than anything, thank you for having me. It's so surreal to meet individuals for the first time since, the height of the pandemic. And it's like, although we know each other, this is our first time actually meeting in person.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be able to do this again. Because I know when we initially met, it was at the height of the pandemic. Things were really tough on all of us. And I'm very happy to be here with you. And more than anything, just thank you for giving me an opportunity to share a little bit about who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish on your platform.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming by. It's crazy. You mentioned that, it's crazy meeting new people or meeting people for the first time. And my wife gives me a lot of crap because I talk to a lot of people through Instagram. Mm-hmm. And, never really actually met them, but, just through social media. So she's like, man, that's not your friend. Somebody from Instagram. I'm like, all right, whatever. But, just give us a little update. You ran your campaign for Centro Elementary School District.
Yeah.
You won. How has that been? Also like going back to the classroom, like all these things that have happened in the last couple of years or so.
Absolutely. I think, for me, when I decided to run in 2020 for the school board, right, it was right at the height of the pandemic. Essentially, the whole world was, flipped upside down. We were all trying to understand how the pandemic might affect all of us, respectively with regards to our life, education, and every other factor. And so that's when I decided to run in 2020. And I was fortunate to be elected by the people of El Centro. I came in first place, and it was a tough campaign, particularly because I had to be creative in how I campaigned. Because, when it came time to door knocking, I was scared to do that. And people were necessarily, they were thinking like, oh, I don't know if I want him at my door right now because of the pandemic, right? Yeah. So I had to get very creative with my campaign. And so fast forward to where we're at right now. I was elected. At the same time, I was part of the team that reopened schools for El Centro. At the same time, we've kept them open. And in addition to that, we just passed the most impactful budget in the history of the district to sustain our future growth, as well as help with our reopening efforts as we continue to move forward for the future generations. So in addition to that, I teach fourth grade, right? And so at the time, I was teaching remotely with this concept of distance learning, which was very tough on all of us. Particularly the kids. Mm-hmm. And so I'm fortunate to, be back in the classroom where my heart is at, where my kids are at. And I teach fourth grade elementary, so 9 and 10-year-olds. And so now we were back in the classroom. And the funny thing is when I got elected, I initially thought that it would be a lot easier because I came from education, because I came from that background. I said, this is going to be a breeze for me. It was not. I had a wake up call, right? But I'm thankful for the team that I serve with, the rest of the board members for essentially taking me under their wing, helping mentor me, guide me. And so, yeah, that's where we're at right now. And we're in a very good place with regards to reopening as well as kids learning. I'm just happy to be back in the classroom. And I couldn't be happier than that. Yeah.
You mentioned that, you thought it was going to be easier. What has been something that you can recall that's been the hardest or what makes you, say that it hasn't been easy?
One of the most debatable issues, that we had was how was reopening going to look like? I had this concept in my head of what I thought it should look like. But some of the other board members had other ideas, as well as our superintendent. And so we had to work together to take all of those ideas and, synthesize them into what we were able to accomplish, which at the end of the day, we brought kids back to campus. And that was the most important issue at the time. But in my head, I thought, I teach fourth grade. I've been doing this for a while now. Things are going to be easy. I understand curriculum. I understand pedagogy. I understand, what it means to be in the classroom. However, I don't understand, on a more macro scale of just all the moving pieces of a district. And particularly because I teach at a smaller district, McCabe, whereas, at El Centro, it's a much larger district, right? So, but again, through these obstacles that have been presented with, in front of me, I've been able to learn through those issues. And, every time I've made a mistake, I take it as an opportunity to learn, to get better, and to do better for the community. Yeah. So, yeah.
And I mean, obviously no elected official is perfect. There's bumps in the road. What has been something besides, the reopening? What are some of the things that you felt, you made the right decision, but yet you got, negative feedback from the community or teachers? Because, and the school district it's not only parents, that you're, getting feedback from its parents, students, to unions.
Absolutely.
Whether it's, the teachers or the classified, and then you got administrators.
Absolutely.
What has been something that you felt like, this is something that I felt comfortable with, and yet, you got a lot of feedback from?
Yeah. Surprisingly, I can say that, well, not surprisingly, but confidently, there hasn't been like one major issue where the community has reached out to me. And I think part of the reason why is simply because I make myself accessible to the community. My number is there, my email is there, and, I hold no grudges per se. It's, I've spoken to members of the union, I've spoken to members of the community, and I've done my due diligence to kind of, understand how the decisions I make impact all of us. And so I can confidently say that, there hasn't been one major issue where people have said, hey, Andrew Arevalo, you dropped the ball on this. I can't say that that's been the case. And again, part of that has certainly been because of my ability to make myself accessible, my ability to communicate, and more than anything, just humble myself down to a level where if I don't know, I ask. I can't tell you how much research and homework I've done with regards to talking to the superintendent, talking to our board president, talking to principals. That was one of the first things I did when I got elected was I held individual meetings with every site principal. And essentially it was a conversation just like this. And to my knowledge, no other board member had ever done anything like that. And so I met with them one-on-one, and we just talked about all of the issues that they were facing. And I talked, I said, well, how can I help? Right. And so I can tell you that was one thing I did really well. And the principals and our admin team, expressed that.
That's good. Yeah, I don't think, here in Calexico, you see some of the board members just like randomly arrive at our school, and people are on edge. But like having a one-on-one meeting, I don't know if they've done that either. So what made you decide to having ran a successful campaign this time around in 2020, and then having somewhat of success as a school board member, what made you decide to run for the IID?
Absolutely. There's a culmination of factors. Particularly, one of the major ones for me was when IID redrew the district lines. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with when that happened or how that happened.
It happened, not too long ago because of the census.
Exactly. And as a result of that, essentially, I became part of Division 1. So I used to be within a different division. I was Division 2, and my director at the time was J.B. Hamby. As a result of the redistricting, though, Alex Cardenas assumed became my director because of that. And so I had already had the idea in mind, simply because I love serving the community. I love getting to make an impact. I love humbling myself down to a level where I put the interests of the community above my own. And so it had been on my mind for a while. And just to provide some background, my grandpa worked for IID for 39 years. He started off as a laborer. We have these black and white pictures of him working in the canals and the fields. And he eventually rose along the ranks and he retired as a foreman for the Western Division out here in Calexico. So he grew up over here on 6th Street. And so that was certainly another part of the decision was, kind of remembering my grandfather's legacy in terms of his hard work and what he established for my dad and myself. But again, at the same time, it just went back to this root of how can I serve the community in a greater capacity? I know that I've had success with leading the schools, and I wanted to see, how might I be able to replicate some of that success and bring some of my knowledge and my expertise as a leader to a different realm. And let me tell you, it was a very difficult decision to make, as you can imagine. It was a very stressful decision. There was nights when I would wake up in the middle of the night, I kid you not, saying, am I making the right decision? Or, I went back and forth. And then, I'm Catholic, right? So I pray a lot and I'd pray. And one day I woke up and I was kind of like thinking about it. I was like saying, I'm going to make the decision. I'm feeling good about this. Then my dad called me, maybe like shortly after waking up. And he said, hey, mijo, I just wanted to let you know that I know that you've been stressed. Mom and I can see it in you. And we want you to know that, we love you. You have our full support if you decide to run. And we got this, So you make that decision and you know that Mom and I are behind you 100%. And if you say yes, then we're there for you. And I just needed that reassurance from my mom and dad. I mean, it was like, it couldn't have came at the more perfect time, just having him on the phone with me. And then two, seeing, some of the past actions of the director who would then be my director. So all of that kind of culminated in this deciding factor. And I said, you know what, let's do it. Let's get to it. I'm ready. And more than anything, I want to serve the community. And I believe I've made the right choice. And the community seems to be in support as well. Let me tell you, I've had a lot of positive support. Even when it came time to getting my name on the ballot, right? So I did a petition in lieu of. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but essentially,
you get signatures too.
I gather signatures, and the filing fee is $500, right? That's a lot of money, especially for a teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so I needed 35 signatures to get my name on the ballot. I submitted 300 signatures.
Wow.
Yeah. I had essentially 10, maybe 15 people tell me they would not sign my paper, and I had 300 people tell me they would. And I think that just kind of goes to show the sentiment right now of the community and how they're feeling. Some of the saddest interactions I had were when I was door knocking, gathering these signatures, and these people, they would look at me and they say, like, mijo, like, I can't recall when was the last time I had a candidate in front of me, like door knocking, trying to get the support from the community, doing it the old fashioned way, putting in the hard work. And he said, and because of that, you have my support, and I'll never forget what he said, because it was so sentimental. I felt it in my heart deeply. And he just said, don't forget about the people. If you get elected, don't forget about us. And I can tell you that that's been a reoccurring theme that many people have expressed to me within my division is we feel forgotten. We feel like we don't have representation. We don't want the chaos that's going on right now. That's not us, and they see what I've been able to do as a school board, member. And they have praised me for my hard work in that. And they say, we support you with this, and it's been really touching. And more than anything, really humbling, just to get that support from the community. And like I said, I lost both of my grandmothers in 2020, right? And I remember when I was door knocking, gathering those signatures, this elderly couple came out, and they were just so happy to have me in front of them and speaking and talking to them about the issues that they were facing. And I'll never forget, is them saying, don't forget about us. Don't forget about the people.
Yeah. During your first campaign, I bet you got a lot of, he's too young. He has no experience. Now that you've, been on the school board for 2 years, is that something that you still get, or are people like now feeling like, oh, you know what, he knows what he's doing. He's dedicated, and all these things that, you've done for the school board.
Absolutely. And I think that was part of what we saw in 2020 as a whole within this community. We had a lot of young leaders stepping up, deciding to run, deciding to push these hard fought campaigns. And, I've essentially proven myself, my ability to run a campaign successfully. I've proven myself in my ability to lead the people, to lead our schools. And so now when I come around the second time, with the door knocking, the people are like, Andrew, oh my gosh, like, it's so great to see you. We have been following you, and you're making those good decisions for the schools. You're doing things right, and we absolutely support you. Whereas the first time, that was not the case, okay? Yeah. It was a lot harder to get that buy-in. And, so I'm much more appreciative. I'm so appreciative of the fact that, that the community recognizes my efforts and my ability to lead. But at the same time, I don't have that same obstacle in front of me of, that sense of ageism, is, hey, Andrew Arevalo, he's someone we can get behind, don't let the young face fool you. But no, it's a good question.
Yeah, and something that stuck with me the last time we spoke was your story about how you went to Q for your first time, and you said, next time I come around, I want to be on the stage and want to be the presenter and whatnot, and you accomplished that. So to me, that's something that stuck, and it's something that said to me, this guy's like, he has a passion to do whatever he wants, and obviously now you're running for IID. What are some of the things that you're doing to prepare yourself? Because it's obviously, if you thought a school board was something that, was going to be a little bit easier, I feel like, running for IID is another monster that,
Absolutely. And it feels, quite honestly, like I'm working on another graduate degree at this point. The amount of research, the homework I've had to do, discussions I've had to have with different subgroups of the community. But I can also share this because I think it's part of, my answer and my call to action to step up is at some point when I went to Q, right, and I said, hey, like that can be me on that stage. And I got to do that, right? I accomplished my goal with that. And then at the same time, I had a lot of success with presenting nationally. And then at some point, I remember like on my way back from Miami, after attending a conference where I got to I was highlighted as a leader to watch. I remember flying back and just thinking, I feel like my energy is being spent in other communities when I should be spending all that energy and focus on the Imperial Valley, on El Centro. Like, hey, don't get me wrong, it's amazing to be recognized in Forbes. It's amazing to be, selected to work with the Department of Education by both, administrations. But what does all of that mean if I'm not putting like all of my energy and focus back into this community where, I'm going to have kids one day? And so that was one of the other deciding factors in my ability to kind of shift my focus from presenting nationally and giving all my energy, knowledge, and time to outside communities and really trying to bring it back into the Imperial Valley, my home. And so I can tell you that I've done extensive homework for roughly 5-6 months now. It really truly does seem like I'm working on another graduate degree. The problems, the issues that we're going to be facing soon, that we are already facing, are obviously a lot more complicated than a school. And even for school reopening amid the pandemic, that's a pretty complicated issue. Yeah. Now factor in, IID with a budget of roughly equivalent of $1 billion. Obviously, it affects a lot more stakeholders, and those decisions that they make affect all future generations, right? And so part of my homework has been researching, reading extensively every night, making myself available to the community and talking to them, trying to understand how issues that, for example, they might be facing in Westmoreland or North El Centro might be affecting the residents there as compared to maybe where I live. I've also been able to, go to some of our local fields and learn from some of the individuals who have businesses in that sector. And I'm very appreciative just of the fact that I'm like a sponge right now. I'm soaking in everything. And granted, I should say I'm trying to soak in everything because it's a lot. It's so much. And the issues, whether it's water or power or lithium, I can tell you I've been doing my homework. I've had to present for different subgroups, and they seem to like what I have to say. And that's something actually that I've been met with a lot when I've been door knocking. Is they say, well, tell us a little bit about what your platform is or what you're trying to accomplish, right? And I start, and then like I had this one lady, and she said, give me your elevator pitch. I started, and she cut me off. She was like, okay, stop. She was like, put up a sign. Like I can tell that you've done your homework, that you know what you're talking about, and more than anything, she said, I can tell that your heart is in the right place. And so, yeah.
So if you were to give me your elevator pitch, what would...
Absolutely. So the 3 priorities that I have among many right now include unifying the board. As you know, there's been a lot of infighting.
Yeah.
I can tell you the community recognizes the chaos, the conflict. They are not happy with it. They do not like to be represented in that manner. And that's something, one of the main actual issues that has come up when I've been door knocking is like, well, you can't be like this person that's there right now. Or you can't say stuff like this if you get upset. And I said, hey, ma'am or sir, that's not my MO. My father, raised me to respect people, and I may disagree, but I'm not going to, call people, bad words or make personal attacks against them just because I disagree, right? And so even in as a school board member, I was just voted in a 5-0 vote by my board trustees to essentially to be our clerk, which is essentially the vice president of the board. And I think that says a lot about my ability to navigate conflict in a healthy way, in a way that doesn't seem like it's personal. In addition to that, I'd like to continue tackling, this issue of water, particularly as we continue to face, aridification, or this drought that we are in right now. Severe drought, I should say. Last year was the second driest year in recorded history. And as a result of that, we will be having a few big issues coming up in 2026. Particularly, we have these things called the interim guidelines that are set to expire. In addition to that, we have our drought contingency plan, otherwise known as a DCP. These are layers on top of, this Colorado River Compact that was established essentially 100 years ago, right? And so as the drought worsens, right, in the Imperial Valley, all of us at some point may have to make hard decisions. The Imperial Valley represents a jackpot, a gold pot of water, and we want to ensure that that water stays here for the future generations, for my kids, for your kids, for us. So that's been, my one of my big priorities. And lastly, I'd like to continue stepping up for the ratepayers. I can tell you, when I've been door knocking, one of the themes that comes up is, mijo, just tell us you're going to lower the rates. And I'm like, as much as I want to say that, it's like, I have to be transparent and I have to be honest, and I have to say, hey, I can't promise that. I'm not going to sit here, stand in front of you and make promises that I can't keep, because that's not who I am. But more specifically, what I can do, though, is I can essentially help from maybe having some of those rates skyrocket, right? I don't know if you're familiar with the recent, board meeting that passed. All of us are going to be hit with essentially a 27% increase. That is concerning. That's very alarming, particularly as I've been canvassing these areas of El Centro where, people are living paycheck to paycheck. They essentially represent, our grandmothers, our grandparents, our grandpas, and then to see these people who are already suffering continue to get these rates, despite, that's concerning for me. And so, those are some of my priorities as, doing those three things right there.
No, and you mentioned the pay rates, something that, and I'm glad you mentioned it, and I like your answer, because obviously you can't promise, nobody that they won't go up.
Absolutely.
And like the 27%, if you think about it, a lot of people in the summer are paying $200-300 in their electric bill because of, AC. So if you have that 20%, 25%, it's going to be almost $100 more in these next 3-4 months, or June, July, August, and September.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of daunting that, to think about it. And I mean, it's hard as a candidate to promise that. But I'm guessing that's one thing that's going to be like,
oh yeah,
everybody's mind.
Yeah, because the one thing when I'm door knocking, I can tell you, the one thing that always gets up without a doubt, it's like one of the first things that the people say is, well, why were we hit with the 16% increase this past summer? Why did it go up that high? And I couldn't even pay that. I couldn't afford to pay that. And so there is this theme that the people, are feeling obviously like, they're not being represented well. But at the same time, I understand that, being an elected official means making hard decisions. And sometimes, everyone's not going to agree with those difficult decisions. But I can tell you that in my time as an elected official, I haven't had many people criticize decisions I've made. If you look at, the last roughly 16 months of my tenure. And so, it's scary to continue seeing the rate increases. But at the same time, I know that we need reliable energy. However, the counter to that is, have we done our due diligence as a public agency to ensure that we are procuring the most reliable energy that is also affordable, right? Because down here, you know, roughly 20% of of our community is in poverty, you know, and I see that, I recognize that, I have the empathy for that. And so, yeah, it's alarming to me when those types of decisions are being made.
Yeah. So you're running for Division 1, right?
Absolutely.
And what area does it cover?
And so Division 1 represents West El Centro, North El Centro, and Westmoreland. And so to give you some context, right, I grew up in North El Centro, right behind Big Five until 6th grade. And then in 6th grade, I moved to the west side of El Centro. And when I was doing this, right, even as I you know, was a 6th grader on the west side, I played basketball for Westmoreland, for the all-star team there, right? Because I went to school in Brawley, right? I've lived in El Centro my entire life, but I attended school in Brawley. And at the time, Brawley didn't have like an all-star basketball team. So my coach from Westmoreland, Abel Gonzalez, reached out to me. He was like, hey, you know, you want to be on the Westmoreland all-star team? At the time, I was like, Westmoreland? You know, like, I've never even heard of Westmoreland. But yeah, you know, I was a 6th grader. Yeah. And so I remember going to the park right there in front of the little police department. And, you know, my parents would take me. And it was a really awesome experience. So, you know, when I decided to run, I actually had roots in North El Centro, West El Centro, and Westmoreland. I've had people ask me, you know, hey, when can you bring me a sign? And I'm like, I need to order them first. Yeah. Like, give me a minute. Yeah. and so I think that's obviously been part of my platform as well, as educating the community in terms of where the district lines are. Because I can tell you that I've had individuals from essentially every city in the community reach out to me asking for signs.
You got them on here,
and even more so in Brawley, you know. No, really, I actually Brawley as well. So, and then I'm like, you know, it leaves me in a tough decision because I'm like, like I want to take them the signs, but you know, obviously that takes my resources out of my district, and so. And I
mean, like, you know, even though there's these districts, right? But you know, at the end of the day, you might make a decision that's going to impact, you know, anybody in the Imperial Valley.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's good to be in touch with not only people in your district, but everybody else in the Imperial Valley.
Exactly. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
So, anything that you would like to add that I haven't, you know, asked you today?
I feel like the conversation went by so fast.
Yeah, we're 30 minutes more or less.
I just like to thank you for the opportunity to come out today, to share a little bit about my platform, what I'm trying to accomplish. At the same time, I just like to, you know, tell the voters, hey, June 7th, Andrew Arevalo for IID, Director Division 1. You elected me in 2020. You've given me the you know, your support in the past. I've made the right decisions for our community. And I've been recognized when I'm, you know, doing the hard door knocking, and I appreciate the continued support. And more than anything, it's very humbling to have the community behind me. And so again, just thank you for the support. I appreciate everything. Mm-hmm. And thanks again. No,
and something I want to mention is, you know, this is, you know, I'm trying to interview anybody that's
Absolutely.
for these campaigns. I'm not endorsing you in
Absolutely.
any shape or way. And obviously you're running against an incumbent that's been, you know, has some experience.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I know that it's going to be an interesting, campaign. It's crazy that, you know, you start seeing all these signs now. So, you
Absolutely.
know,
and hopefully the community can, look at our debate that will be coming up in April. I think that'll help give some insight.
Where is this at?
This will be with Collab, and I'll have to get the dates for you, but hopefully the community can you know, get a chance to view that.
Do you have any social media or websites that people can follow?
Yeah, you can. My personal page, Andrew Arevalo. I tend to post a lot about my campaign there, but in addition to that, my campaign page, Andrew Arevalo for IID Director, as well as my website, which is essentially the same name. And so with that, just thank you for your time. I appreciate being here. And
thank you for coming back and finally meeting in person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, send me those links so I can put them on the show notes. People can click on it and
you got it.
And visit your website. Thank you for coming down to Calexico. I know gas prices are gas prices and electric prices are on the rise.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, so yeah, thanks, man. I enjoyed the conversation.
No, me too. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening or watching. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.